We have already done a fraction review in class, but I really would like to go over it again just to be sure you guys know what we are doing, because we're fixing to start using them in a few more things. Here are the steps for adding and subtracting. Obviously, if you have a calculator, you can just type it in, but we are soon going to have letters in here and you cannot type in variables. So your first step is an if step. If needed, convert any mixed numbers to an improper fraction, and we do that with the wheel. And then any whole numbers put over 1. Your second step is to create a common denominator. Technically, you need to find the least common multiple of your denominators. Basically, just ask yourself, what can all my denominators become? Always use multiplication. And remember, you can multiply by 1. So if you have a number that as a denominator the others can become, you can use that. Then you add and subtract your tops, keep your bottoms, and then if needed, reduce. You can leave your answers at improper fractions, but you do have to reduce. So let's work one real quick. Let's do a two-step. 3.5 plus 4 minus 7 2/3. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to convert all of our improper fractions to a mixed number. Remember, we start at the bottom, multiply, then add our tops. 3 times 2 is 6. 6 plus 1 is 7. And we keep our denominator. Any whole numbers we're going to put over 1. 3 times 7 is 21. 21 plus 2 is 23 over 3. And I've now taken up too much space, but now we need to look at our denominators. So I have 2, 1, and 3. What can 2, 1, and 3 all become using multiplication? And the answer is 6. So I'm going to do 2 times 3, and whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. 1 times 6, whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. 3 times 2, whatever I do to the bottom, do to the top. So my new fractions are 7 times 3 is 21 over 6. 6 times 4 is 24 over 6 minus 23 times 2, which is 46 over 6. And now I simply add or subtract my tops, keep my bottom. So 21 plus 24 is 45, minus 46 is negative 1. So my answer is negative 1 over 6. To multiply, we do the same things. We need to, or the first step is the same. If you have mixed numbers, convert them. If you have a whole number, put it over 1. Now listen, one of the reasons we're re-reviewing this is because a lot of you missed this before. You do not need a common denominator when you're multiplying. You only need a common denominator if you're adding or subtracting. Multiplication, you just do top times top, bottom times bottom, and then reduce. You do not need a common denominator when multiplying. So let's work one of these. Let's do 2 times 1 and 3/5. Okay? If step. If we have a whole number, put it over 1. If we have a mixed number, convert it. 5 times 1 is 5. 5 plus 3 is 8. Keep your denominator. I do not need a common denominator. I simply do top times top over bottom times bottom. And if I can, I reduce. If not, I just leave it like that. There's one extra step in division. Our if step is the same. If needed, convert all of your mixed numbers to improper fractions, and then put your whole numbers over 1. Now here is the step that we have to remember. Technically, it's illegally impossible, or whatever. It's illegal to divide fractions. So there's two different mindsets here. Some people say keep, change, flip. Keep the first fraction, change to multiplication, flip the second. Others say flip the second and multiply. Whichever mindset works for you, that's what you need to be saying in your head as you're working these. And then we multiply. So you do not need a common denominator. Top times top, bottom times bottom, and then reduce. So let's work one of these. Let's do 6 2/3 divided by 9. All right, if step. If needed, convert to mixed numbers to an improper fraction. 6 times 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20. Keep your denominator. Divided by, put all whole numbers over 1. Okay? Now, we flip the second and multiply, or keep the first. Change to multiplication. Flip the second. And now we're multiplying. We do not need a common denominator, so we do top times top over bottom times bottom. And if we can, we reduce. If we can't, we leave it just like that. And 20 over 27 cannot reduce, so that is it. If you were in class, you guys received a fraction review sheet. There are 20 problems. I am not going to type those in to the test online. I'm going to just put number 1, number 2, number 3 all the way through to number 20, simply because it takes me 16 hours to enter those. And that program doesn't really let me do fractions very clearly. So it's going to say, number 1 will say number 1, 2 will say number 2. If you do not have that sheet, I can send you a picture of it, so just let me know.